The harsh CBS studio lights shone down on the shiny debate stage as Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett fussed with her vibrant red blazer. Her expression was serene, but resolve sparkled in her eyes. Opposite her stood former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi, standing tall in a crisp navy suit, her blonde locks perfectly coiffed. Both women were ready for what was supposed to be a typical political debate on Face the Nation, until it wasn't. Just moments before, the tone had changed in an instant. What had started as a polite exchange burst into animosity when Crockett unexpectedly took out a folder and slammed it onto the table. "I've got the receipts on exactly how your policies hurt everyday Americans," she announced, her voice ringing through the studio. "Today, the American people will see whose side you're really on." Bondi's eyes narrowed slightly, though her composure remained intact. Without a word, she reached into her briefcase and retrieved a sleek black folder. Unexpected, but clearly deliberate. The audience leaned forward, breath held. This wasn't just another debate. This was a clash between two of the most powerful female voices in American politics, and neither showed signs of backing down. Prior to resuming, the broadcast interrupted for a moment to remind viewers of the subscription opportunity, encouraging them to press the button and ring the bell so they wouldn't miss the next political commentary. The cameras then cut back to the moment already shocking millions. Moderator Margaret Brennan attempted to restore order. "We're here to discuss bipartisan solutions to the immigration crisis," she reminded, trying to steer the conversation back on course. But the stage had already been taken. Jasmine Crockett, Texas's 42-year-old Democratic upstart, was not going to be silenced. A former civil rights lawyer with a fire-in-her-belly voice and penchant for going viral on TikTok, she had made a career of being a champion of working-class Americans. She had just made national headlines for her incendiary questioning in congressional hearings, and now was a hero of unapologetic progressive advocacy. "The American people deserve honesty," she said, ignoring Brennan's prompt. "I've watched Pam Bondi stand beside powerful corporate interests for years while claiming to represent regular citizens. Today I'm bringing receipts." Bondi, 56, bore the mantle of establishment conservatism. As the state's first female attorney general, she had held office for 2 terms, prosecuted drug traffickers, battled corruption, and gained a reputation for her hardline approach to immigration. Her decades of courtroom experience and ability to thrive in the glare of public scrutiny made her a tough opponent. "Congresswoman Crockett," Bondi responded levelly, "I've spent my career putting criminals in jail and defending the rule of law. If you want an actual policy debate, I invite it. But if you're here for political theater, just know I don't intimidate easily." The stakes were palpable. Crockett, regarded by many as a future party leader, had made a risk-taking gamble. For Bondi, suspected to be looking for a Senate run, this was her opportunity to demonstrate strength under attack and gain the support of moderate voters. Brennan attempted once again to bring things back on track. "Let's stick to the agreed topics," she coaxed. "With all due respect, Margaret," Crockett cut in, "the American people have a right to know who's fighting for them and who's just pretending." She slammed open her folder and laid out a series of papers on the table. "Let's discuss the real Pam Bondi." The camera closed in on Bondi, whose expression never changed, except for a slight smile. It was thin but unapologetic, as if she had been anticipating this moment. "By all means, Congresswoman," she replied, her voice steady. "Let's discuss it. But let's be certain we speak the entire truth." Bondi then pulled open her own file, displaying meticulously laid-out papers with color-coded tabs. The room became electric. Both women were armed to the teeth with facts, and neither seemed poised to back down. Crockett raised a document. "The public record indicates that as Attorney General of Florida, Ms. Bondi took a $25,000 political contribution from the Trump Foundation, just days before declining to join the Trump University investigation." She looked straight at Bondi. "Coincidence, don't you think?" Gasps spread through the audience. CBS News cameras focused in on the documents as they landed on social media in real time. Crockett pushed forward. "Here's your track record with pharmaceutical firms throughout the opioid crisis. While Americans were dying, Your office put off legal action against the same firms bankrolling your campaign. Bondi stayed silent, unaffected. Her quietness evoked mixed reactions. Some interpreted as guilt, others as calculated tranquility. In healthcare, Crockett snapped, getting fired up. You battled to deny protections to people with pre-existing conditions while accepting donations from insurance behemoths. I've got the receipts. She knocked on the file with her knuckles. Brennan attempted to cut him off, but Crockett persevered. The American people are better than politicians who talk one way and do another in secret. That's why I'm a member of Congress, to stand up for accountability and transparency. She addressed Bondi. So, I'm asking you, right now on national television, how do you explain these contradictions? The silence that followed was like a vacuum. People waited, breath held, for Bondi's response. Would she deflect? Attack? Instead, she smiled, a low-key, self-assured smile. Are you done, Congresswoman? She asked. Crockett nodded. Thank you for bringing up these vital issues, Bondi said, tidying up her notes with a composed hand. I appreciate the opportunity to address them head-on. Her voice was measured, nearly gracious. She sipped from her water glass before speaking on. On the matter of the Trump Foundation contribution, she said, this situation has been under investigation thoroughly. Here is the official report by the Independent Ethics Commission. She pushed the paper across the desk to Crockett. Page 3, no wrongdoing found. Before Crockett could intervene, Bondi continued. That choice was made by professional prosecutors. States with more meritorious claims were already charging the case. It was a matter of good resource allocation, not politics. She grabbed a second file. Opioids, of course. I'm glad you mentioned it. Florida was one of the third states in the country to sue opioid companies. She handed Crockett a brief of law. We got back more than $800 million. The timeline is in this filing. Crockett's face changed. This wasn't what she anticipated. She began to open her mouth, but Bondi interposed a soothing hand to finish. The room was quiet. What had started as a one-way attack had become a multi-layered exchange, defensive, challenging, and now something else. What worries me the most, Bondi spoke, voice relaxing, is not defending my record, but knowing why you wanted to meet with these talking points today. She produced one final document, a printout of an email. This came to me last week, she stated. Crockett blinked, though ever so briefly. It's an email from Democratic strategists, laying out a coordinated effort to attack conservative women on public platforms. The subject line is Messing Guidance for Crockett versus Bondi segment. It's 3 days ago. The crowd gasped. Margaret Brennan leaned forward, looking clearly surprised. I don't ask you to affirm or deny, Bondi said softly, but I believe the public is entitled to context of political theater. Crockett's jaw clenched. You're sidestepping tough questions about your record. I'm not sidestepping, Bondi responded, her timing impeccable. I've addressed every point with evidence. What we need to inquire is how we behave in political debate. She turned to the audience. I've faced hard questions in court for decades. What worries me isn't being challenged. It's the idea that Americans won't recognize staged political attacks when they see them. The tone of the debate had shifted. What started as an ambush had become a battle over authenticity. Bondi, against the odds, now seemed to command the moral high ground. Seeing the drama unfold, Brennan leaned in. Congresswoman Crockett, she inquired, would you like to respond? Miss Bondi's remarks prompted a visible shift in Congresswoman Crockett's demeanor. She straightened her papers, recalibrating her tone. The American people don't care about political processes, she declared. They care about outcomes. And the results of the conservative policies Miss Bondi supports are obvious. More corporate power, less protection for regular Americans. She paused to collect herself before continuing. You could try to deflect with procedural arguments, but the core of my questions still stands. Bondi replied calmly, nodding. I totally agree. Results count. So let's discuss actual outcomes. She opened a new part of her folder. I prepared for this discussion as well. The air was charged with tension in the studio. The two women faced each other, papers scattered on the table, both refusing to budge. What had started out as a routine political piece had become a battle royale that would take center stage online within hours. What the American people need, Bondi asserted, her voice firm but assertive, is a conversation rooted in the entire truth, not selected facts intended to mislead. She spoke directly to the crowd. Congresswoman Crockett alluded to my efforts in regards to the opioid crisis, without adding that our litigation plan was formulated in conjunction with other state attorneys general for the purposes of generating the maximum amount of pressure on drug companies. She pushed a piece of paper down the table. This bipartisan joint statement, signed by Democratic attorneys general from across the country, including your state's Democratic AG, praises our bipartisan efforts. Crockett gave the paper a glance but did not comment. Bondi went on, speaking of campaign donations, public service requires openness. So let's be absolutely open. She drew out another paper. Here are FEC filings that indicate that, after criticizing my donors, the Congresswoman has accepted more than $3.2 million from many of the same corporate interests she says she's fighting. The audience murmured as Crockett's expression hardened. That's a total mischaracterization, she said firmly. Bondi interjected gently, it's public record, just like my record is. The difference is, I'm not pretending to be something I'm not. Moderator Margaret Brennan intervened, trying to get the discussion back on course. Let's get back to policy solutions, she pushed. But Crockett, not willing to let go, interrupted. The American people are not deceived by fancy words and paperwork. When you were Attorney General, Florida's rates of incarceration for nonviolent criminals skyrocketed. That's not just a figure. That's families torn apart. The message resonated. Bondi nodded, conceding the seriousness of the issue. Reform of criminal justice is something where we could possibly find agreement, she said, surprising many. In my second term, we started diversion programs for nonviolent criminals. Those cut incarceration by 18% and have been referenced by both conservative and liberal reformers. She slid another document across the table. Then Bondi made a surprising move. She closed her folder and looked directly at Crockett. I think we're missing a bigger opportunity here, she said. What if we use this moment to show Americans that women from both political ideologies can see areas of common ground? The studio was silent. Nobody anticipated the turnaround. For example, Bondi went on, I know that both of us care about ending human trafficking and protecting vulnerable populations. I created the state's first human trafficking task force as AG and rescued hundreds of victims. I know you have done good work in this space, too. Crockett, caught off guard, paused as she considered her response. Yes, she said cautiously, I've worked on anti-trafficking legislation, and your task force model has components worth considering at the national level. The tone of the exchange subtly shifted. The tension didn't vanish, but the nature of their engagement evolved. Perhaps, Bondi said, this is the time to demonstrate that behind the theatrics of politics, we actually can work together to solve problems. She reached out, a genuine gesture, and not a show. It was a good move, putting Crockett in a difficult spot. Turning it down would appear partisan. Taking it would mean giving up her combative edge. Crockett hesitated for a few anxious seconds before making her move. She shut her folder. The American people are entitled to better than political theater, she declared. While her words carried the suggestion of cooperation, her tone was calculated, not conciliatory. There are places where collaboration is sensible. Human trafficking legislation is one. Sentencing reform might be another. For viewers, the moment was electric. What started as an intense political clash had unexpectedly become a conversation about unity. Not through superficial agreement, but through Bondi's calculated shift that de-escalated conflict without conceding. Margaret Brennan, quick to recognize the moment, guided the discussion toward these shared priorities. The rest of the segment focused on policy, still tense, but more constructive, as the two women explored where their ideologies might align. As the show ended, Bondi leaned over the table to shake hands with Crockett. Crockett stalled, then reciprocated. Their mutual glance told that this was not an end. It was round one of an ongoing rivalry. In a matter of minutes, social media erupted. The hashtag Bondi Crockett Showdown trended globally, followed by hashtag political chess match and hashtag unexpected unity. Highlights were cut, dissected, and discussed across platforms, with no discernible consensus as to who won. Progressive voices praised Crockett's boldness. "This is how Democrats should fight," direct and with receipts, tweeted a liberal influencer. Supporters emphasized her tough, questioning, and issue-driven focus, dismissing Bondi's composure as superficial polish. Meanwhile, conservatives celebrated Bondi's poise. "A masterclass in handling political ambush," wrote a right-leaning outlet. Many applauded how she stayed calm, rebutted criticism, and shifted the conversation toward collaboration without compromising her views. But independent voters and political analysts offered the most nuanced takes. "This wasn't just theater," one analyst wrote. "It was a clash of styles, Crockett's direct firepower against Bondi's strategic control. Both were effective, but in different ways." That evening, TV networks rolled out panels to break down the showdown. On CNN, a Democratic strategist admitted Crockett aimed to put Bondi on the defensive. But Bondi's preparation turned the tables. Fox News declared it a Bondi victory, hailing her as a master communicator. MSNBC defended Crockett, arguing that putting issues on the national record was itself a win. Both women benefited from the encounter. Crockett's fearless fashion infused the Democratic Party with new energy. In 24 hours, her campaign and causes she endorsed raised more than $1.4 million. Her social following exploded, particularly among younger voters. Progressive organizations hailed her as a warrior, and media invitations swamped her. Bondi, on the other hand, solidified her image as a legitimate contender for higher office. Her level-headed performance and message of unity resonated with centrists and moderates. Political groups lauded her capacity to hold firm while also offering an olive branch. "This is the tone Washington requires," averred one centrist pack. Perhaps most importantly, the debate fueled a bigger national discourse. Editorials on both sides of the aisle discussed what civil, constructive disagreement might resemble. "What made this exchange so noteworthy," one columnist wrote, "wasn't the disagreement. It was that two powerful, opposing voices discovered a sliver of common ground." Then came the surprise. A week later, Crockett and Bondi co-announced a joint town hall to debate bipartisan solutions to criminal justice reform, specifically human trafficking and sentencing laws for nonviolent crimes. Was this a genuine attempt at cooperation or a cynical PR stunt? Opinions were divided, but even cynics admitted the importance of the gesture. For voters, the incident sent a mixed message. It demonstrated that leadership requires both passionate conviction and an ability to listen. Both Crockett and Bondi had exhibited these qualities, though in very different forms. Their debate quietly altered the political terrain. Two women from opposite sides of the ideological divide had demonstrated that tough arguments need not degenerate into mayhem. By doing so, they provided a glimpse of what a more effective, less fractured political future might look like. When media attention subsided, one question remained. Was this the beginning of a new age of civil disagreement, or merely a tactical lull in an endless ideological conflict? Only time would reveal. But one thing was certain. Neither Pam Bondi nor Jasmine Crockett would ever be underestimated again. And when they next met, the whole country would be watching.